The clock struck midnight. Across the frozen steppes of Eastern Europe, radar operators noticed nothing unusual. Their screens glowed green in the darkness. Coffee grew cold in their hands. Another quiet shift was ending. Then the sky came alive. 574 drones descended from the black void, like mechanical angels of death. Their rotors sliced through the frigid air with surgical precision, each machine no larger than a car, each carrying enough explosives to level a city block. The sound was otherworldly, a low, menacing hum that vibrated through the bones of sleeping villages below. Farmers jolted awake in their beds, children pressed faces to frosted windows. Dogs howled in ancient terror. In the darkness, LED eyes blinked red against storm clouds, casting eerie shadows on snow-covered fields. The wind howled at 40 knots, but these machines pressed forward with ruthless determination. Their navigation systems locked onto coordinates deep in Ukrainian territory. This wasn't just an attack. This was the opening move in a game that would reshape modern warfare forever. But Moscow had no idea what they had just unleashed. At 3:17 a.m., the horizon erupted. The first wave hit Ukrainian forward operating bases like a sledgehammer through glass. Military installations that had stood for decades vanished in pillars of orange flame that reached toward the heavens. Communication towers crumpled like matchsticks. Supply depots disappeared in thunderous blasts that shook the earth for 50 miles. Ukrainian air defense batteries scrambled desperately. S-300 missiles streaked through the darkness like falling stars, their contrails painting white lines across the black sky. Gepard anti-aircraft guns opened fire, spitting tracer rounds that looked like deadly fireworks. But the sheer volume of incoming threats overwhelmed every system. Radar screens lit up like Christmas trees before going dark forever. One by one, defensive positions fell silent. The mechanical hum grew louder as more waves approached. Each drone found its target with surgical precision that defied explanation. Senior Lieutenant Maxim Volkov watched from his command bunker as his entire sector burned. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared him for this. The age of swarm warfare had arrived, and Ukraine was about to learn what that really meant. Captain Dmytro Kovalenko pressed his back against the concrete bunker wall. Shrapnel rained from above like deadly hail. His ears rang from the constant explosions. Blood trickled down his forehead. His radio crackled with panicked voices from across the front line. "Base 7 is gone! We've lost contact with 3rd Battalion! They're everywhere!" Through the smoke-filled air, Kovalenko watched his men scramble for cover as drone after drone dove toward their positions like mechanical hawks. Their Kalashnikovs spat fire uselessly into the sky. You can't shoot down what you can't see coming. His ammunition was running low. Communications were cut. The enemy seemed to know exactly where to strike. Every weak point, every blind spot, every emergency protocol. "Sir," Sergeant Petrov crawled through the rubble, his uniform torn and blackened. "We need to evacuate. The fuel depot is compromised." Kovalenko stared at the burning sky above. Red eyes blinked through the smoke. More were coming. Always more. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just another attack. This was systematic annihilation. And someone had been planning this for a very long time. The real question wasn't how many drones Russia had. It was who had taught them how to use them. 3,000 miles away, the Pentagon's crisis center erupted into controlled chaos. General Patricia Hayes slammed her fist on the mahogany table. Coffee cups rattled. Phones rang incessantly. The largest drone swarm in military history was unfolding in real time on wall-mounted screens the size of movie theaters. "Ma'am, we're tracking over 500 distinct targets," Lieutenant Colonel Morrison reported, his voice tight with stress, all moving in perfect coordination. Intelligence analysts worked frantically. Their keyboards clicked like machine guns as they processed incoming satellite data. Red dots disappeared from tactical displays faster than they could count them. Each dot represented millions of dollars in Ukrainian military assets. "This changes everything," Hayes muttered, watching another air defense battery go dark. The scale of coordination required for this operation was staggering. Russia had capabilities no one had anticipated. The drones weren't just attacking randomly, they were following a precise pattern, taking out specific targets in a calculated sequence. Defense Secretary Austin burst through the secure doors. His face was grim. "General, I need options. Now." Hayes stared at the screens. Ukrainian positions vanishing like candles being blown out. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'm not sure we have any." But halfway around the world, Ukrainian intelligence was about to discover something that would turn this nightmare inside out. Dawn broke over the smoldering landscape like a blood-red revelation. Major Anna Petrenko adjusted the focus on her reconnaissance scope, squinting through the acrid smoke that hung over the battlefield like fog. The Ukrainian intelligence officer had seen war for 3 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. The drone strikes had been perfectly surgical, every explosion calculated, every target chosen with impossible precision. But as satellite imagery flooded her secure tablet, Petrenko's blood ran cold. The Russians hadn't targeted what everyone assumed. Instead of destroying Ukrainian defensive positions, the swarm had systematically eliminated specific communication nodes and radar installations, creating precise blind spots in Russian detection networks, gaps in their own surveillance grid that shouldn't exist. "My God," she whispered. Hidden among the wreckage were fragments of advanced technology, circuit boards with markings that made no sense, guidance systems decades ahead of anything in Russian arsenals, components that shouldn't exist in any military inventory. Petrenko's secure phone buzzed. It was General Syrskyi himself. "Major, what did you find?" She stared at the smoking craters, her mind racing. "Sir, I think we've been looking at this all wrong. The Russians didn't attack us." "Explain." "They attacked themselves, and I don't think they know it yet." Someone had been playing a much deeper game, and Ukraine had just found the smoking gun. Within 6 hours, Ukrainian forces mobilized a response that stunned military analysts worldwide. General Alexander Syrskyi stood in his underground command center, studying digital maps that glowed like blue fire. The same communication gaps that should have crippled Ukraine's defense had instead become highways for their most elite units. "Gentlemen," he addressed his commanders, "Moscow just handed us the keys to their kingdom. They just don't know it yet." Special operations teams infiltrated deep into enemy territory, moving like ghosts through the blind spots created by Russia's own drone attack. Storm Shadow missiles launched from hidden positions. HIMARS rockets began their deadly arc across the border. The hunter had become the hunted. At 11:30 a.m., the first explosions thundered across Russian soil. Strategic targets that had been untouchable for months suddenly found themselves naked against the sky. Arms depots erupted. Command centers vanished. Air defense installations that had protected Moscow for decades crumbled under precision strikes. Captain Andriy Shevchenko guided his Bayraktar drone through Russian airspace, his hands steady on the controls. Through his scope, he could see enemy soldiers running like ants from their burning positions. "Target acquired," he radioed. Fox 2. The missile streaked toward its target, carrying with it the fury of a nation that refused to die. But this was only the beginning. The Kremlin's emergency bunker shook like an earthquake was tearing it apart. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu gripped the steel railing as another massive explosion rattled the reinforced concrete above. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red. Secure communication screens flickered and died one by one. "Status report," he barked at his terrified staff. "Sir, the Tula Arms Depot is gone, completely destroyed." Colonel Alexei Petrov's voice cracked with disbelief. "That's our largest ammunition storage facility." Through secured feeds, Shoigu watched Russia's most critical installations disappear in fireballs visible from space. The Engels strategic bomber base, home to their nuclear-capable Tuesday 95-second, vanished under precision strikes. Ryazan Air Defense Command went dark. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Air Defense Commander Colonel Viktor Petrov's hands trembled as he tried to coordinate a response. Their most advanced S-400 systems were being picked off with surgical precision, like someone knew exactly where each radar was positioned. "Minister," Petrov's voice was barely audible, "our entire Western defense grid is compromised. They're inside our network." Shoigu stared at the tactical display. Red warning lights blinked across the Moscow region like a Christmas tree from hell. The fortress that had seemed impregnable was crumbling from within. And somewhere in the depths of the bunker, darker conversations were beginning. In the deepest level of the Kremlin bunker, words were being whispered that had haunted the world since 1945. President Vladimir Putin sat at the head of an oak table scarred by decades of crisis meetings. His face was stone. His eyes reflected the red glow of warning lights that pulsed like a heartbeat across the command center. Mr. President, General Gerasimov spoke carefully. Conventional deterrent has failed. We need to consider other options. The red phone sat ominously between them. Direct line to nuclear commanders who controlled enough firepower to end civilization. Putin's hand hovered inches from the receiver. Defense advisors whispered in urgent tones. Tactical nuclear protocols were being discussed. Yield calculations, target priorities, the mathematics of Armageddon. But intelligence reports flooding in revealed an even more terrifying truth. Sir, Chief Intelligence Officer Narishkin placed a classified folder on the table with shaking hands. Ukraine's strikes aren't random. They're following a pattern. They're systematically dismantling our nuclear command structure itself. Putin's blood froze. Someone knew the location of every buried cable, every hardened bunker, every secret facility that controlled Russia's ultimate deterrent. How is this possible? Narishkin's voice dropped to a whisper. Mr. President, I believe we've been infiltrated at the highest levels. Someone has been planning this for years. The red phone seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. But Putin realized with growing horror that lifting it might be exactly what his enemies wanted. As smoke cleared over devastated Russian strongholds, intercepted communications revealed the truth that would rewrite the history of modern warfare. NSA headquarters at Fort Meade buzzed with activity. Cryptographers worked around the clock, decoding signals intelligence that painted a picture too incredible to believe. The Ukrainian operation hadn't been planned in Kyiv. It had been orchestrated from a location that would shock the world. General Hayes, Intelligence Director Sarah Chen, burst into the Pentagon briefing room with classified documents clutched in her hands. You need to see this immediately. Satellite imagery flashed across the screens. Unmarked aircraft departing from a facility that didn't officially exist. Electronic signatures pointed to technology decades ahead of anything publicly known. Ma'am, Chen's voice trembled. The drone swarm that started this whole thing? It was a deliberate provocation, designed to expose and exploit weaknesses that only one nation could have identified. Hayes studied the evidence, her face growing pale. My God, how long have they been planning this? Years, maybe decades. The game board was bigger than anyone imagined. Powers were moving pieces in shadows that stretched across continents. What looked like a regional conflict was actually something far more dangerous. Who else knows about this? Hayes asked. As of right now, just us. The question wasn't who was winning this war. It was who had started it and why. As the sun rose over a transformed battlefield, military leaders worldwide realized they were witnessing the birth of a new kind of conflict. Traditional rules of engagement lay shattered like glass. The balance of power that had held for decades was shifting beneath their feet like quicksand. In bunkers from Beijing to Washington, generals stared at situation reports that read like science fiction. At Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD Commander General Richardson studied global threat assessments that made his blood run cold. Ladies and gentlemen, he addressed his staff, we are no longer fighting the war we trained for. Autonomous swarms, AI-directed strikes, neural network battle management, the age of human-controlled warfare was ending before their eyes. In Moscow, the red phone remained untouched. Putin realized that lifting it would mean playing directly into someone else's strategy. But not lifting it meant watching his nation's military might crumble in real time. The drone swarm that had started everything was just the opening move. Somewhere in the shadows, puppet masters were pulling strings that stretched across multiple countries, multiple decades of planning. The only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. As General Hayes watched the global situation map update in real time, one question burned in her mind. If this was just the beginning, what nightmare comes next? The answer would reshape the world order forever, and humanity might not survive to see it.